of yesterday. I realized that once you talk the truth, you become a bad person or irrelevant person. The point is about the guy of Hartfall yesterday, the spokesperson. The person, whatever he is experiencing now in Northwest, is exactly what we experience here in Mangaung and Bloemfontein. Point is, by the time President Ramaphosa announced that South Africa is going to be a construction country, I said, walala. So here come the opportunities for us South Africans to can get involved into construction and empower ourselves. And looking at the point of 30% on any project above 30 million is an instruction in black and white that the local people need to have a participation of 30% of the total amount. So it's not to extortion, it's not to become a construction mafia. It is to become a part of it, to participate with labor and everything that is needed in order to bring the product into its needs. So the point is that other people misuse it, and other people don't want those who knows about it to come and help in implementing accordingly. So the point is, here in Bloemfontein, I only realized that when the president announces, there was already a plan, and the pipeline to the plan was DBSA and Education Department, because these people are all from Mpumalanga, Limpopo, Gauteng, and KwaZulu-Natal, being appointed without our knowledge, the Bloemfontein people, without our knowledge, the Mangaung people. And then these people, they will ask the people local who want to subcontract to come with their own money of 750,000 rand to do the project. And then once you do the project, you're not paid for the coming 2 months to 3 months, whereas the very same companies are now taking money or making their own withdrawal from DBSA and National Department of Education, and then they don't pay us. What is the meaning of this? Is this, how are we going to treat each other? And these people, when they made the withdrawal, you put your money, you invested your money, but you don't get paid. What is the meaning of this?
Sure, Magdalene, yeah, it sounds like something that we'll have to look into a bit more closely to understand what really is happening. I don't have an answer for you, and quite frankly, I don't even know where we would begin in trying to understand the issue that you're raising. But you've raised it, so give us a chance perhaps to look into what is happening, okay? All right.
Exploiting our own people.
Okay. All right, Magdalene. Let me go to ZT in Johannesburg. Good morning, ZT.
Good morning, Mrs. Kate. How are you?
Well, thank you.
I'm good. Thanks. Firstly, condolences to former Minister Kodani, and condolences to the family. May his soul rest in peace. He's a comrade of the ANC, so we don't say anything bad during this difficult time. And condolences to the entire ANC family. I called on a different note, Cathy, this morning. I'm not sure if I'm the only one who feels abused about these telemarketing companies. And I know in this country we've got the POPI Act, but oftentimes you get quite a number of calls, even in important meetings, you get a phone call, person is calling you only to sell you something. I just want to check if maybe you can get a legal expert to come and explain to us so that maybe an action can be done, because they're becoming abusive now.
Yo, ZT, I agree with you 100%. 100%.
Thank you. I mean, you do understand some of them are doing their job, and you don't want to sound rude or anything, but yes, it's rude not to take a phone call or not to talk to them, but they sell you something that you don't know where they got the information from, and there's nothing you can do about that. But really something needs to be done. Maybe you can just create a situation, a platform for us to be educated as your listeners.
Okay.
To do something about this. It's really getting out of hand. Thank you.
All right, ZT, thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, my experience has been no amount of take me off your database, I do not want to receive calls from you, has actually helped. If anything, it seems to make it worse. Your phone ends up becoming a switchboard for telemarketers. And you don't even want to answer phone calls from numbers you don't know, because you know 9 out of 10 times, it's a telemarketer. So, yeah, absolutely an issue that we can follow up on. It's 10 o'clock, time for the latest news.
In our top stories, tributes pour in for Praveen Gordhan and Education Minister snubs Bela Bill signing ceremony. Good morning. Former Deputy Minister of Public Enterprises Obert Bapela has described the death of Praveen Gordhan as a loss to the nation. The former Minister of Public Enterprises died in hospital this morning following a short battle with cancer. Reflecting on his tenure serving as the Deputy Minister, Bapela describes Gordhan as a no-nonsense man who was solution-driven.
He was a very tough person, a non-nonsensical, principles, hard-working, a fearless leader who was not afraid to raise difficult issues, controversial issues for that matter, and confronting them head-on. So may his soul rest in peace. It's a great loss to the country, and we fought in the rebuilding of the African National Congress. He will be on the side as a retired man, giving advice and wisdom, but unfortunately not had other plans.
Meanwhile, peace activist and former politician Ella Gandhi has paid an emotional tribute to Gordhan. Gandhi says she's always been friends with the Gordhan family and has fond memories of first meeting him when he was a teenager. Gandhi remembers him for his integrity and hard work.
It is really a sad occasion, but we've lost, a very, very committed leader in our country, a person who actually, did a lot of work for the country.
As a show of protest to President Cyril Ramaphosa signing the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill into law, Minister of Basic Education Siviwe Gwagube will not be attending the signing ceremony. The ceremony is scheduled to take place at the Union Buildings this morning. In a letter addressed to the President, Gwagube says she remains opposed to the bill in its current form and has requested the President refer it back to Parliament for reconsideration in terms of Section 79 of the Constitution. Gwagube's actions follows the DA, her political home, having said that the bill is a dangerous step that bodes ill for the future of the GNU and it will drive South Africans apart. The DA's national spokesperson, Willie Oukamp.
The DA remains committed to defending the constitutional right to mother tongue education, and we will continue to strenuously oppose any attempt by Education Department officials to override the right of school governing bodies to formulate language and admission policies. Apart from serious constitutional issues, this unilateral decision by the President negates the principles of consensus seeking and good faith, as was agreed to in the statement of intent that was signed by both the DA and the ANC when the Government of National Unity was formed.
The entire Mahikeng in the northwest was plunged into darkness yesterday after an explosion at a substation. It affected electricity supply to Mahikeng, Mabatu and surrounding areas. Some areas electricity was restored a few hours after the incident, but many parts have remained without power. Eskom spokesperson Ezekiel Baruti earlier said the estimated restoration time for the remaining customers and villages is any time after 8 o'clock this morning. This provided there won't be further complications or breakdowns. The governor of Nigeria's Borno state says as many as 2 million people are now estimated to have been affected by floods that have swept across the northeast region. Babagana Zulum told the BBC that half of the state capital in Maiduguri is underwater and thousands of people are desperate for food and shelter. The BBC's Azizat Ololowa has more.
I have been to at least 4 communities where hundreds of people are trapped. They feel helpless, frustrated and hungry because they are forced to sleep outside on the streets. I saw 2 dead bodies floating on the flood water. Authorities are now worried that there could be an outbreak of waterborne diseases after the waters recede. Search and rescue are still ongoing, but displaced people in the settlement camps we've been to are complaining that they do not have enough food to eat and the necessary supplies.
Recapping the top story, former Deputy Minister of Public Enterprises Albert Bapela has described the death of Praveen Gordhan as a loss to the nation. The former Minister of Public Enterprises died in hospital this morning following a short battle with cancer. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Liverpool FC have collected maximum points in their opening 3 matches of the 2024-2025 season. They want more victories.
Look at the white shirts coming here. Salah! Salah scores at Old Trafford again.
Meanwhile, Forest want to dictate terms at Anfield.
High towards the back post. Wood with a free header. Yes! 1-0 Forest. Wishwood scores.
This is the Premier League. Catch the spectacular clash between Liverpool FC and Nottingham Forest on Saturday, 14 September at 3:30 p.m. live on SABC 3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
The students, UJ ladies, want to ensure that they secure 3 points to stay close to the heels of second-place UWC ladies. However, Copper Belt ladies plan to fasten their belts tight and escape from the bottom half. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch them Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. UJ Ladies FC versus Copper Belt Ladies FC on Saturday, 14 September at 11 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
10:08. Welcome to the second hour of the show. It's a pleasure to have you with us on the Talking Point. Coming up in this hour, we're really zooming in on the issue of late payment for SMEs, particularly coming through from government departments. It seems to be a problem across the board. Of course, there are those departments that tend to do better than others, but I think just more generally, it is a very big problem. We'll be in conversation with the Public Service Commission to understand how this matter is being addressed. Before we get into it, your WhatsApp voice notes from the open line.
Cathy, morning. The political grandstanding regarding the signing of the Bella Bella Act is really not helping the ordinary teachers, the learners in the school communities. So we're now hearing that the minister who runs basic education will not attend the signing. This is confusing, Cathy, because how is this thing going to be implemented if the minister is not present? I think the right thing to do is President Ramaphosa should withdraw this thing, go back to the negotiation table and settle this thing. Education is so important for this country. We have big unemployment. We have massive issues in teaching and learning in this country, and we need to get this thing right. Richard, Cape Town.
Hey, good morning, Cathy. I can't talk for the dead. They are history now. Cathy, there's this issue about Ramaphosa having to decide on the case of VBS on Simelane. So Ramaphosa doesn't need to say anything because these things looks like a trap to him, because the case of Simelane, they talk about 500,000, and if we had to reflect on Ramaphosa, 500,000 on a different currency. So this thing by the judiciary that the president needs to have a final word on this case. It's a trap for him, whether he will defend the person or not, but it's a trap for him. Brenna by Proteagland. Thanks for the great show.
Our deepest condolences to the family of Pravin Gordhan. We are saddened by his passing. He was such a great man. He had the real love for the country, not for the evil ANC. I remember when he was called from abroad by Jacob Zuma, after Jacob Zuma had been instructed by the Guptas to fire him, how he had to duck and dive under the evil attacks by people like Tom Moyane, Jacob Zuma, Malusi Gigaba, and all the evil people in the ANC. But this is the reality of life. King Solomon calls it the vanity in the Proverbs, in the Bible. May his soul rest in peace. We will miss him so badly. Matiba, thank you.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to SAFM listeners and to your club at the back. Oh, Cathy, I'm really so disappointed. Very disappointed. Last time usenza kwelandoka kwe-Municipality Watch, ilady elale lapho kanye your guest eyayilapho yayithembise ngento zika-August uba zabe sezigqityiwe. Now xa ufuna i-feedback abantu balalale ifuneka uba bayive, akabambi ifowuni. But why those people, they are taking those positions but they can't held accountable? It's so pain. Honorable Magwekha Kubana, Cape Town, Welgazile.
Morning, Sisi Cathy. Akuko soka, elingenasici. Gordon was a hero. I don't mind, I don't worry about his critics. To me, he was a hero. He was a hero. One of my heroes, Nkosazana Zuma, Togotitiza, Naledi Pando. These are my heroes. These are my heroes. Innocent and unless proven otherwise. Lizo from Brixton.
All right, thanks for those WhatsApp voice notes. So earlier on in the week, in fact on Monday, we started off the show on the open line with quite a number of entrepreneurs that were getting in touch with us over their frustrations about the non-payment of invoices by various departments. And it led to, just them explaining what the impact on their businesses is, but how you have almost a domino effect. Once they're unable to get the money, they can't pay people, SARS is on their back. Once they can't pay SARS, their accounts are blocked. So now they can't even do more work due to the lack of the tax clearance certificates. We received a call from Sianda in KZN, who was the first one to raise the issue. I'm going to replay Sianda's call in a moment, but let me introduce our guest for this hour, who is Cameron Jacobs, the Chief Director, Governance and Monitoring at the Public Service Commission. Cameron, good morning to you. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning, Cathy. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you, and we appreciate your coming on. Let's listen to what Sianda has to say. He really was the first one who raised this issue. It triggered the responses from our listeners, and subsequently then the need to have this conversation.
I'm an entrepreneur in the space of construction, and we've been involved with contracts that are linked with water and sanitation, which get implemented by, I'd say, implementing agents at the Department of Education. And we struggle a big deal of late payments. And because of the lack of communication, or I'd say lack of getting written advices in terms of what the challenges are, or anticipated dates for payments, it then makes you an unreliable person to whether the suppliers that you work with, the team or employees that you work with, or whoever is actually a beneficiary of that particular project, because you can only go up to a certain extent with your own cash flow, and at some point these contracts must pay so that the project self-sustains itself. It then becomes even worse when you then finish the project and then the client doesn't pay you for over 60, 90 days. And like I'm talking to you, I do feel that my company is actually literally collapsing because of these issues.
How has your business been affected in the last couple of months based on your experience?
The business gets affected in many parts. So I'm saying frustration. I can tell you, I'm one man in the office right now. I've lost 2 technicians, and then last week I lost my assistant, my office administrator, because they can see that the ship is sinking every time you're giving excuses, let alone the letters of demand that are flocking into the office.
So that is Sianda's experience, somebody who's struggling to keep his doors open. Cameron, when I look at the latest National Treasury report looking into the 2023-24 financial years of both national and provincial departments, Sianda is one of so many that are dealing with this problem.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that the annual report by Treasury is somewhat disappointing. Actually, not somewhat, really disappointing, in fact. There is very little improvement, especially when you're looking at invoices older than 30 days from both provincial and national government. At a national level, there seems to have been a regression of around about 24%, according to the Treasury report, and with provincial government, there's a regression of about 9%. And if you look at the numbers, the value, total values around about 35 billion in total, and that is extremely disappointing, especially given the fact that Section 38(1)(f) of the PFMA makes it peremptory for the payment of invoices within the prescribed period or the agreed period. So it's not discretionary. And I think that is really, really disconcerting, given the fact that the Public Service Commission and National Treasury constantly reports on the non-compliance by provincial and national departments.
I just want to read out some of those figures for our listeners. The number of invoices that Cameron is talking about that were paid after 30 days by the national and provincial departments had a rand value of 35.1 billion rand. Now, the number of invoices that are older than 30 years and that have not been paid by the national and provincial departments, and this was at the end of March 2024, those invoices have a rand value of 10.7 billion rand. these are people that have not paid. Cameron, what is most concerning is that we know that a lot of these individuals that are supposed to have been paid will largely be SMEs, businesses that are simply trying to make sure that they put themselves in a good footing so that they can be sustainable and they can grow. And, on the one hand, government says we want to build SMEs, we want to do business with SMEs, and when they do, this is how they treat them.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you're just spot on. And I think we're addressing the issue, or we're discussing the issue this morning around the non-payment of invoices. But I think there's a much larger problem within the public service, within the public sector as a whole. There's this culture, if you will, of, I wouldn't necessarily, just a lack of accountability, a lack of openness. I listened to that insert, and SMEs, clients, people, vendors, they have no idea what is going on. They expect the invoices to be paid within 30 days, and then there's no word from a government department. And it's not that this cannot occur. There are many departments. If you look at the Treasury report, there are a number of departments who succeed in payment of invoices within 30 days. The Public Service Commission would be one of those entities that consistently pay invoices well within the 30-day period. And it's the culture within the public service that needs to be addressed fundamentally. That's the one thing. Part of that as well would be about how the public service perceives it anyways, in terms of consequence management. How I prefer to call it is disciplinary action against accounting officers, against officials. And for us to actually adhere to the legislation, and there's no adherence to the legislation for that necessary disciplinary action to take place. I also think that the human condition to a large extent is can be quite individualistic. So if it doesn't bother me, if it doesn't affect me, it doesn't really matter. And I think that is something within the public sector that we need to get rid of quite quickly.
There are supposed to be laws and frameworks that govern how the state is managing its affairs in this regard. You spoke about the PFMA and how it explicitly also states that invoices should be paid within 30 days. Why is there such a disregard?
There are a number of reasons. Some of it, I think, are plausible. I think, for me, the overriding reason, to be quite honest with you, Cathy, is just a lack of accountability and a lack of transparency. Despite the fact that there may be other cogent reasons within departments itself. So there is a lack of capacity within government departments. And often strategically, there isn't this alignment. The Public Service Commission does this report on the constitutional values and principles on a quarterly basis, looking at different departments. And often what we see in respect of the alignment between budgeting and expenditure, there's always this misalignment. So there's poor budgeting, there's a lack of alignment between the budget and the procurement plans. That's the one thing. The other thing, like I said, there's a lack of capacity. So within sort of supply chain management, even within finance, there's a lack of control of internal systems or adequate internal systems. This is sort of within government departments. Often, when you don't have those systems the risk management systems and the audit management systems. Often invoices get unrecorded, they get misplaced. And of course, then there are other issues as well, just in terms of the vendors themselves, where there are at times incomplete supporting documents, which sort of delays the process. But when you look at the number of invoices older than 30 days, and you look at the quantum itself, it cannot necessarily reside with incomplete supporting documentation. So the problem resides with department, and ultimately, like I said, the buck would stop at the office of the CFO and the accounting officer, and that's really just the lack of accountability.
At what point do we say that this culture is something that can be changed? Because it is quite concerning that you would have such high numbers of individuals, of companies and entities that have not been paid, and they feel powerless. They feel that there's nothing that they can do to actually change that situation. They're at the mercy of the bureaucrats who are making the decisions and who sometimes just go cold turkey and decide not to communicate. And so that increases their anxiety. It increases the state of limbo that they are in. It seems to be a very unpredictable set of circumstances that these companies are faced with. Is that the way it should be?
I mean, certainly I agree with you, and it shouldn't be like that. I mean, there shouldn't be a level of unpredictability with any sort of particular service within any sector, within the private sector. We just look at the private sector. There's an element of predictability, payment of invoices, the particular kind of client service. How do we get around this? Well, I think that there's significant effort at the moment, and significant, I think, political will right up from the level of the presidency to change the culture within the public service and the public sector as a whole, which is one of the reasons why Cabinet adopted in October 2022 the professionalization of the public sector, so that we can get rid of the culture, this culture of a lack of accountability, lack of transparency, wasteful expenditure that you often see within local government in particular. And so this framework document on professionalization is intended to try and change the public service so that it can meet the aspirations of building a capable and developmental state. Currently, within the medium-term development plan that is still in draft form, strategic priority 3 of the medium-term development plan is to develop a capable and ethical and developmental public service. And part of that is the professionalization framework. So I think that there are efforts. The Public Service Commission is playing a supportive role currently in driving with other entities such as the Department of Public Service and Administration, the National School of Government, and the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation to make sure that we meet the needs of citizens in the country by changing the public service, by changing the public sector through the professionalization framework. So we are on the cusp of that at the moment. I think that if I want to be somebody with a glass half full, I would argue that we in a particular stage in our period in our country's history with the government of national unity, with government's plan of rapid economic development through Operation Vulindlela and the professionalization framework to turn the ship around, to change the public service, to develop that character formation, to build that capability, and to change the paradigm fundamentally with the public sector so that we adhere to the fundamental values of the Constitution. and the rights of the Constitution. So I think that it's a work in progress. But that's why I indicated early on that, yes, this is a conversation about the 30-day payment of invoices. But I think the larger problem is changing that culture of the public sector. And I hope and pray and that the professionalization process, the professionalization of the public sector will in large measure improve the performance, the capability, and the integrity of the public sector.
Yeah, I suppose the difficulty, Cameron, is that all of this, will come as cold comfort for those that are waiting to receive payments, because they are still in a situation where they can't afford, for the change in paradigm. They can't afford to for the point where the public service has been professionalized. So something in the interim absolutely has to give, and I don't know what that is. We'll continue this conversation in a moment. It's 10:30.
A very good morning to you. With the news headlines, Eke Modupi Makhalemele. ANC SG Fikile Mbalula has paid tribute to former Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan. Gordhan died in hospital this morning following a short battle with cancer. Flights at King Palo Airport in East London are running again after flight cancellations yesterday due to gloomy weather and navigation system problems, making it impossible for flights to take off or land. And the U.S. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has ruled out holding another presidential debate with Kamala Harris. A full news update coming up at 11.
The rand is currently trading at 17 rand 73 to the dollar, 23 rand 29 to the pound, and 19 rand 66 to the euro. Markets in Asia were mixed at the closing bell. The JSE mainly higher in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe have extended gains. Gold is trading at $2,565, platinum $986 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $72.44 a barrel.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. You love drama? Then step into the world of Luther as he cracks down on criminals terrorizing the streets of London Monday to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Top Gear will have you falling in love and rolling in laughter as Jeremy Clarkson and his team take you on an automotive journey like no other, Monday to Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up. S3.
Kickstart your journey to success in 2025 with the Durban University of Technology. DUT offers programs in the faculties of Accounting and Informatics, Applied Sciences, Arts and Design, Engineering and the Built Environment, Health Sciences and Management Sciences, open for applications for 2025. Applications close on 30th September 2024, but dates may vary. Visit dut.ac.za for a full list of available programs and entry requirements. Apply now through the Central Applications Office by visiting cao.ac.za.
Catch the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2. It's another elimination week, and the bottom 6 are taken on a culinary trip back to school. For this challenge, they must create their dream lunchbox filled with nutritious yet delicious treats, and their creations are impressive. That's the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7, repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. only on SABC2.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on the Talking Point. We're looking at the lack of payment of service providers by government. This is both national and provincial departments, and the numbers, of course, are absolutely staggering. So to date, I guess at the close of the 2023-24 financial year, this is at March, you had 10 billion rand that was owed to service providers at both the national and also the provincial level. Cameron Jacobs is Chief Director, Governance and Monitoring at the Public Service Commission. So, Cameron, what do we do now? Now that it's absolutely clear that there is, number one, a lack of compliance from government departments with the PFMA, that there is a lack of accountability when it comes to actually doing what they're supposed to do, which is paying service providers. But on top of that, not even bothering to communicate with these service providers. What must happen now? Because surely it can't just be left as saying, well, there are efforts to improve the system, and that's that.
Yes, I think there are a number of things that service providers can currently do. I want to, but before I get there, I think that when I look at Section 38(1)(f), and I indicated at the very beginning that that particular provision is peremptory. It says that accounting officers must. It's not discretionary unless there are exceptional reasons or reasons where one can request condonation. And I think that in the first instance, I think that there ought to be some sort of regulation within the PFMA via the National Treasury to enforce that particular provision of Section 38(1)(f). In other words, consequence management and disciplinary mechanisms need to then take effect. And I think that the Public Service Commission has made that recommendation at a number of different fora. I remember last year I in particular made that at a particular technical meeting, that we need to enforce that particular regulation. So that there is that disciplinary measures, and that I think it's also part of the professionalization framework, as I spoke to you about it earlier. I mean, a key part and a core part of it is around trying to ensure that there is consequence management within the public sector as a whole, and that's sort of for the future that we need to sort of continue advocacy around this in terms of National Treasury, in terms of the respective portfolio committee. To ensure that there is a mechanism where you hold CFOs, you hold accounting officers personally accountable. And that can happen within respect of the PFMA. For immediately now, I think that there are two things that service providers can do. There is a complaints channel via the National Treasury. I think it's called 30 days queries at treasury.gov.za, where when service providers do come unstuck, they do not necessarily get information from government entities. They can utilize that email address, the 30-day queries at treasury.gov.za, and lodge a particular complaint in which the National Treasury would then follow up, or the Provincial Treasury would follow up. That is the one mechanism. The Public Service Commission will be another mechanism in which, as a constitutional body, we have that oversight role over the public administration and the public service. And if a service provider has a particular problem, it becomes an administrative matter, it becomes an administrative issue, and so the service provider can lodge a complaint through the Public Service Commission as a public administration complaint, and the Public Service Commission would be obligated to investigate that matter or refer the matter to National Treasury for further investigation. And I think those are sort of the immediate things that can happen. From the Public Service Commission side, as I said, we are trying to lobby as much as we possibly can. This is one of the reasons why we produce a quarterly report and present it to the Portfolio Committee, to present it to the various fora within government, to try and push the envelope as much as we can to ensure that there is regulatory or legislative change to ensure that that peremptory requirement of payment of 30 days of payment of invoices within 30 days is in fact upheld.
What would you say has been your success rate, particularly for those individuals that have come forward to the Commission to report challenges that they are having? And how would you say departments then often respond to you? And perhaps there might be an opportunity for you to clarify whether you do the investigations yourselves or whether you just, take it up with Treasury and it's up to Treasury then to look into it further.
Well, in respect of your sort of the last point that you made, when the matter is within the jurisdiction of the Public Service Commission, so we would assess the complaint, we would assess whether it's a public administration complaint, whether it falls within the investigative jurisdiction of the Public Service Commission, then we will certainly investigate. If there's another forum or another body that can more expeditiously or better expeditiously resolve the matter, we would refer the matter to the particular entity concerned. The matter of 30 days or the payment of invoices resides within the jurisdiction of the National Treasury. So the Public Service Commission would usually, I think, under these sort of circumstances, work together with National Treasury around the investigation matter. But like I said, if it's a public administration investigation matter and it falls within the jurisdiction of the Public Service Commission, we will certainly investigate. Cathy, I'm not quite sure what was your initial question. I can't remember.
So I think my initial question was the success rate of the Commission when it has received these complaints. So if you have 5 people complaining about these issues, how many of them have you been able to successfully resolve?
Well, look, that depends particularly on the sort of the merit of the matter. The Public Service Commission itself has its own internal rules where we need to resolve particular complaints within a specified period of time. We have found over the past couple of years in particular, as the Public Service Commission has sort of tried to strategically reposition itself, make itself a little bit more visible, a little bit more vocal, sort of pushing the envelope a lot more, that we are achieving a lot more success. Departments are beginning to listen, I think, a lot more to the Public Service Commission, adhering to our particular recommendations and the advice that we do provide. So I think that there is success, but it does depend on the merit of the matter as well, the complexity of the matter. But I think that we have, in a number of sort of public administration investigation matters, we are achieving good success. If we don't, we then take it further as a sort of an oversight body. We take the matter further to the portfolio committee. We provide the portfolio committee with our reports and the challenges that we have. And I think sort of recently, the past year or so, I think the Public Service Commission, together with the portfolio committee, conducted a particular investigation around the payment of invoices. So I think that, if we don't resolve the matter ourselves, we then take it further through the portfolio committee, through the other channels, as well as sort of our own technical channels of foresight, for example, which is the Forum of Directors General.
Do you think that this problem is currently being adequately dealt with, that we have the right solution to the issue? Because while I have an appreciation for the fact that there is this mechanism in place to assist service providers where they haven't been paid, if I'm to come back to Sianda's story, who's having to make a decision today about whether or not to close his business, this, of course, then means that he will inevitably have to shut down because the process takes so long.
Look, I certainly agree with you. I think from my personal view is that no, I don't think it it is given the serious attention that it deserves. This is a perpetual problem within the public service, in the public sector. And, we continually draft these reports, we continually make these pronouncements about the non-compliance. The Treasury reports itself is an obligation on government departments to provide reports to Treasury in terms of the payment of invoices, and you would have seen yourself in that particular report, although the majority of departments do comply with those exceptional reports, there are other departments that don't. And I think that is a particular problem. And I don't think that the problem is going to be addressed, in my honest view, with providing these particular reports constantly. There needs to be disciplinary measures taken against the chief financial officer, the director general concerned, and there needs to be a professionalization of supply chain management of the finance sector within many government departments. This was identified within the professionalization framework itself, that there needs to be a greater professionalization of supply chain management of CFOs. So I think that we've identified the problem. We're moving towards that, but I particularly concede that service providers can't wait for the professionalization of the public sector. They can't wait for the outcome indicators of the medium-term development plan. There needs to be something that happens now. And it would be my recommendation, as I said, one of the things that we ought to push for quite strongly is that disciplinary measure, is that regulation, that Treasury regulation in terms of Section 38(1)(f), that there must be disciplinary measures if government departments fail to comply. I think that is the only way we're going to actually turn around the ship. And if we are serious about the professionalization framework, about ensuring accountability, ensuring consequence management, then these are the things that we have to do. I think legislation is there for a particular reason. The law is there for a particular reason. If you don't comply with the particular law, then there need to be penalties and there need to be sanctions applied accordingly. And that's one of the fundamental ways we're going to change the public service, and we're going to professionalize the public sector.
Cameron Jacobs is the Chief Director, Governance Monitoring at the Public Service Commission. So we've got some messages and voice notes that have come in for you, including some callers that I want us to go to. This message is from Anonymous in Allen Ridge, who says, "Good morning, Cathy. The Department of Health in the Free State has dealt young emerging contractors a huge blow by not paying them since December. We are told that they want to appoint a new contractor. How are we going to get our monies back?" That's just one example. Let's play these voice notes.
Anonymous here. We are facing the same situation with the Department of Public Works. There are payments that are 3 months. We don't know what's going on with Public Works. We can't. Our business credits are accumulating interest, which is about 17% a month, and we are being taken for ride by the department. Our invoices are there without any increases on the invoices. So this late payment by the Department of Public Works is really abusing us. Anonymous here in the Eastern Cape.
A very good morning, Sis Cathy and your listeners there. But isn't it funny that we hear about a lot of tenders whereby these people have been paid millions and end up not even doing half of the job or doing a subpar job, right? And then you have these small service providers who are rendering good quality services to government, yet they are not paid. I know it's two different things, but if the government would start thinking of paying these tenders people half the amount before they start the job and then half after, this could solve both problems, I think. So yeah, that's my take.
All right, thank you for those contributions. And he's right that sometimes you'll get people who have gotten a contract for millions and millions of rand, and that gets paid out. But a small business owner who's waiting for 250,000 rand has to, be sent from pillar to post to get payment. Peter, you're calling us from KZN. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Cathy. Cathy, sorry, I'm actually coming from the side of a consultant. We get appointments from the government to certify payments in the construction sector for contractors. And I think your guest today has got a lot of similar plans that we hear from the government, that things are going to happen. But on the ground, like Sianda, it's a very serious issue. Going back 7 years, there was a hotline at Union Building, and I personally sent 3 or 4 emails, and eventually I said, is this the correct email? That was set up to expedite the payments. Till today, I haven't had an answer. Locally, provincially, and nationally, there's just no willpower to help these poor people. And the number of them on the ground, when we see that the government talks about jobs that are not incomplete or standing, there's a major portion of those that are stopped because of non-payment. And the poor contractors are borrowing from the machinistas to pay at 20-25%, and then eventually they have to abandon everything. And the talk about 60 and 90 is just the simple ones. There's payments going back 6 months, some of them a year. And when you inquire on behalf of these contractors, they say the invoice is lost, and then sadly they issue a new invoice which is current, and then they wait another 90 days or 102. And even it's happening, I personally got hold of the CFOs and spoke to them right as far as Pretoria. We'll get back to you, and believe it or not, even at this stage when there's the initiative to actually get this problem solved, there's no response. There's definitely no response.
So, Peter, what do you find yourself then having to do? How do you deal with those situations?
We actually try as much as possible to go back to the client departments like Public Works or whoever else and say, please, but there's no communication as it. They tell you we're coming back to you, and it's elevated. A month, 2 months go by, and they get upset. They say, listen, we told you there's no money. And it's sad because the work's going on, and we've been told, tell these contractors to go to site. They're not performing. And then you find that they just don't even have, some of them don't even have money to fill petrol in the vehicles. We strikes on site, the people, the workers leave, they haven't been paid. There's distrust. We get calls from their suppliers and service providers saying, listen, we hear they haven't been paid, is it true? And we say, yes, they're just waiting for payment. But they say, we have to close the accounts, we have to sell their vehicles, we have to sell their property, and then we can't pay. Some of the times they can't pay because they don't have the tax clearance. And it's not their fault. They can't pay that over because they haven't been paid. And, a serious issue is that SARS is double dipping. SARS is a government department that they get paid on VAT, on a VAT invoice basis, but the contractor hasn't been paid. So it's really just going around in circles. And the position here is no better than 2 years ago when there was this initiative, even from the president, that they're going to help contractors, but nothing of that stuff is happening. We see it even now in the last 7 or 8 projects I've got. Contractors haven't been paid for 3, 4, 5 months. And they're just tired, and the sad part, they don't even have food. You won't believe it. When they come to the office, you say, they said, can we help? They say, we took a taxi, we don't even have food for our families.
Sure.
It's a very serious issue. And I know that the initiatives from government are there, but it's slow. There's no accountability because the people on the top, you can't get hold of them after you've spoken to them once. The phones, they just don't answer the phones.
All right.
So something's got to be done.
Thanks for that contribution there, Peter. Cameron, do you want to come in? Hello, Cameron.
Cathy, hi, I'm here. I can certainly understand the frustration of many service providers out there, and your last caller in particular. That he understands that there are initiatives in government, but it's slow, and people have heard this all before, and nothing has changed. And I certainly appreciate that. I'm sort of, as a public servant, I'm sometimes frustrated myself because the Public Service Commission would make a number of different recommendations, and it's slow. Government entities are slow to implement. So I can certainly appreciate that frustration. Currently at the Public Service Commission, I am, as the Chief Director for Governance Monitoring, I'm sort of one of the leading project leaders on the professionalization framework. From the Public Service Commission side, like I said, we're playing that supportive role. And I can assure listeners that it has been frustrating for me over the past financial year in terms of some of the things that the Public Service Commission put forward. But there is a move towards change. There is a shift towards change to also strengthen the role of the Public Service Commission, so that we have a much stronger voice than we have now. Within the professionalization framework, there is currently buy-in. I indicated that we're constantly in conversation with the Department of Public Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, with the DPSA, with technical people within the presidency as well. So I'm quite positive that there will be change. There is change on the horizon. I know that listeners have heard this all before, but there isn't. As we also said, that we need to push the envelope a lot more. Sometimes the political will may not necessarily be as strong as we want it to be, especially around the invoices of 30 days, the payment of invoices of 30 days. And the Public Service Commission is doing its level best to push that particular envelope so that we don't have the quantum and we don't have the number of invoices older than 30 days. And we will push as much as we can to get that Treasury regulation so that we hold those accounting officers accountable for Section 38(1)F.
Xolani, you're calling us from the Eastern Cape. Good morning.
Hi, Cathy. May I please just recommend to the Commissioner there, the way forward here is for the PSC to recommend that the senior administrators that are appointed both at local, that is local government, and in the government departments provincially, nationally, that there should be a dotted line for all the DGs, all the municipal managers, chief financial officers, a dotted line to the National Treasury in terms of reporting, so that the National Treasury can vet every person who's going to be appointed in that space, and then they also account to them in terms of what they do. The report, Cathy, just to summarize, the Auditor General is just a snapshot of exactly what is happening until the recommendations comes from these two institutions, SALGA and the PSC, recommending that all senior administrators must have a dotted line to the National Treasury for reporting. That will help going forward.
Thank you for that contribution, Xolani. Cameron, very briefly, is that something that you as the PAC can do?
Look, I think that, to a certain extent, I think that we must be somewhat careful. I think the problem with the public service sector and the public service as a whole is that it is way too rigid. It is compliance-driven. It is rules-driven. There are currently quite a number of sort of reporting lines between DGs, between departments, that sometimes there is that sort of reporting fatigue, if you will, and then that results in government departments just sort of maliciously complying, if you will. I think that in terms of the AG, I think that the nice thing with the AG at the moment is that legislation has provided, or has been amended to provide the AG with a greater enforcement role to hold government departments, to hold DGs to account, and obviously it reports to Parliament in respect of its sort of enforcement mechanisms.
Right.
So the AG has a lot more teeth, and together with the Public Service Commission, we do hold these departments to account. Look, the dotted line towards sort of National Treasury, I think that sort of National Treasury, we need to understand what the mandate of National Treasury is in terms of the fiscus itself. And there are other mechanisms to deal with sort of issues of compliance or lack thereof.
Okay. Cameron?
And I do think, yeah.
We're going to have to leave it there. I'm completely out of time. Cameron Jacobs is the Chief Director of Governance at the PSC.
Hey, Ntwana, if I could, I'd fly to Dubai.
Here we go again.
First class, Exeni. Niti shwe. Get myself a V12 Beast and a mansion with Instagram-worthy views.
You don't even have Instagram.
Imagine seeing the city skyline from my bedroom, watching MasterChef SA while I have my very own MasterChef in my kitchen. Forget the queues at the cinema. I'd have one in my crib, Joe. I'm talking 7.1 surround sound and a 120-inch 8K TV whilst I'm sipping on some grapes. I'm talking luxury, Ntwana. What do you know about that? Let me school you, bro. Tune into Dubai, Buying the Dream. Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. on S3. And channel your inner luxury. Only on S3. Open up.
Powerball is estimated at a staggering 106 million rand jackpot this Friday. Could luck be knocking on your door? Play Powerball for an estimated 106 million rand today and stand a chance to bag the life-changing jackpot. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old and play responsibly. eTuba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
After cutting the Buccaneers' continental journey short last season, Botswana Giants, running Galaxy, want to make beating the black and white outfit a good habit. They meet again, but Sir Rivero's boys land to take full control at Botswana National Stadium. This is the second preliminary round of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Experience great vibes of African football. Running Galaxy FC versus Orlando Pirates FC. This Saturday, 14 September at 4 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The top stories this hour, more tributes for Pravin Gordhan, and Trump rules out another debate with Kamala Harris. A very good morning to you. ANC SG Fikile Mbalula has paid tribute to former Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan. Gordhan died in hospital this morning following a short battle with cancer. Speaking to our news desk, Mbalula said that Gordhan was a man of integrity.
In government, he became an activist, a champion of anti-graft and corruption. And when time called upon a person to take a stand, PG was one such. You knew where you stood with him. It was no fake, no plastic. PG was not a pushover. One thing for sure, I worked with him as a colleague in cabinet. He was an intellectual. He was not swayed by what was said around him and very firm in his beliefs.
Rise Mzansi leader Songezo Zibi, meanwhile, says Gordhan was one of the brave voices that stood up against state capture. The former minister was among the key witnesses who testified at the state capture inquiry. Zibi says Gordhan led from the front in fighting corruption.
The first is that he was not a coward. From the time that he was involved in the struggle as an activist and as an operative in Operation Vula, to the post-1994 period as SARS commissioner, but also during the dark years of state capture. He showed what standing for principle looks like. He led by example. He led from the front. It was a very difficult time for him and his family.
Flights at King Palo Airport in East London are running again after flight cancellations yesterday due to gloomy weather and navigation system problems, making it impossible for flights to take off or land. Provincial Transport spokesperson Unati Bingosi says since the weather has cleared, flights are able to operate, adding that this is a relief for the province.
These are welcome developments for us as the Eastern Cape Department of Transport, for we understand the importance of transportation, particularly air transportation, as an enabler for economic development, especially for our province that is in dire need of economic stimulation. We further welcome the intervention by the National Minister, Minister Chrissy, on giving clear deadlines to our partners in attending to their navigation system challenges without cutting any corners, of course, so we can avoid having fair weather airports, as is the case at the moment.
Health authorities in the city of Cape Town have launched a pilot online appointment system where clients can schedule visits. They say the portal puts clients in control of their clinic visits. The city's Patricia van der Ross says the portal is a step up from the existing appointment system.
I want to encourage as many of our clients to use the system, not only to make their lives simpler, but also to help us iron out any glitches. I also want to appeal to users, please stick to their appointment times by arriving at least half an hour earlier. These are exciting times for City Health, and I call on everyone to please work together so that we can build a system that works for everyone's benefit.
And U.S. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has ruled out holding another presidential debate with Kamala Harris. He was speaking at his first election rally since the debate on Tuesday, in which he was widely considered to have fared poorly. Trump told supporters in Arizona that he had clearly won the encounter against his Democratic rival. More from the BBC's Jenny Kumar.
Donald Trump's not normally one to back off a fight, but he's decided there'll be no more TV jousts with his political opponent. Kamala Harris, at her own rally last night, said she was ready for round two. Some 67 million viewers tuned in to watch Tuesday night's debate, the first time the pair went up against each other, and now we know it'll be the last.
The top story at 11, ANC SG Fikile Mbalula has paid tribute to former Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan, who died in hospital this morning following a short battle with cancer. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemeli.
Africa from Within follows the journey of our anchor presenters who travel to various locations in order to delve into the inner workings and untold stories of the unsung heroes. At its core, Africa from Within is all about grassroots storytelling and the showcasing of the conservation contributions of ordinary people to Africa. It aims to engage and entertain viewers, educate and promote conservation, and inspire viewers to value our natural heritage. Don't miss Africa from Within on SABC2 every Friday at 7 p.m.
After cutting the Buccaneers' continental journey short last season, Botswana Giants, joining Galaxy, want to make beating the black and white outfit a good habit. They meet again, but Sir Rivero's boys plan to take full control at Botswana National Stadium. This is the second preliminary round of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Experience great vibes of African football. Joining Galaxy FC versus Orlando Pirates FC this Saturday, 14 September at 4 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. Liverpool FC have collected maximum points in their opening 3 matches of the 2024-2025 season. They want more victories.
Look at the white shirts coming here. Salah! Salah scores at Old Trafford again.
Meanwhile, Forest want to dictate terms at Anfield.
High towards the back post. Wood with a free header. Yes! 1-0 Forest.
This is the Premier League. Catch the spectacular clash between Liverpool FC and Nottingham Forest on Saturday, 14 September at 3:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game. The students, UJ ladies, want to ensure that they secure 3 points to stay close to the heels of second-place UWC ladies. However, Copperbelt ladies plan to fasten their belts tight and escape from the bottom half. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game, UJ Ladies FC versus Copperbelt Ladies FC on Saturday, 14 September at 11 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The Friday Wind Down. Kick off your weekend the right way.
All right. You're listening to the Friday Wind Down. Let me begin with disclaimers. As far as disclaimers go, I am absolutely not in my comfort zone today. We're venturing into the world of classical music and, of course, more specifically, opera. And it is a genre that one would say is in bloom in South Africa. We've got a number of incredibly talented performers that have made such phenomenal breakthroughs on the international stage within the world of classical music and opera. Let me invite our guests for this hour. renowned in his own right, and also building a generation of performers who are expected to take the baton forward into the next generation. Recently, Opera UCT held a world premiere for its stage adaptation of Donizetti's The Last Opera, Delinda. And of course, we're also joined by one of the leads of the play to tell us about their journey. So, director at Opera UCT, Professor Jeremy Silver. Professor Silver, good morning to you. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting us.
And Luvo Maranti is a student, a tenor in particular, at Opera UCT. Luvo, good morning to you.
Good morning to you too.
So, Prof, I spoke about the fact that opera is generally a genre of music that I think is enjoyed in South Africa. Although one often gets the sense that it is quite niche. But when you look at the choral appreciation for music in this country, I don't know how niche opera then would be. What is your sense? You understand this a lot better than I do.
I have the absolute sense that all those choirs around the country love opera, love the music of opera. They're constantly singing opera. They're getting together in their own communities. They're getting together in national competitions. And it's really from those environments that we attract young singers who want to learn all the other skills, the language skills, the acting skills, and so forth, which could put them on the international stage, and very often does.
Are you intentionally seeking out talent from these choral groups?
Very much. Yeah, we go around the country when we can. I mean, in any case, we at UCT are very well known for training opera. Mm-hmm. But we do go around every so often, and we try to contact schools, choirs, and so forth. And we say, look, this is a very real possibility for you. If you have some talent and you have some interest, we could really help you on the road to really something quite extraordinary. And as I say, many have done. Mm-hmm. In Europe, in America, often here too, but it's very hard to make a career in one country as a singer. So they are often, spread around a little bit. But various South African opera singers are really the most famous singers of their generation now.
I would imagine that school competitions, including Eisteddfod's, would be a good chance again for young people to take up sort of this genre of music. What do you find is often a limitation in attracting talent to this genre?
I think there are so many young singers who are interested. Quite often, especially from certain areas of the country, there's this sense that maybe coming to Cape Town would be like going to New York. We have to persuade them that it's very possible to come here, that it's not out of their reach, that they will be nurtured, they will be helped. There's funding, there's pastoral care, and there's obviously also the work that we do. I think it's quite often people just being a little bit worried that maybe it's not a world that they're ready for. And my message to them is that it really very well could be, and that our successes have proved that.
That's very interesting. That it's a world that people feel that they're not quite ready for, which means that it's also a world that they view as being very different to what they've become accustomed to in terms of life. Luvo, let's talk about your own journey as an opera singer. How did you end up at Opera UCT?
So I used to work for a company called Upper Gold in Hermanus, and 2018, the late George Stevens, who's the former head of the opera department here at UCT, he went to do a masterclass, and I happened to be part of the people to partake in the masterclass. Shortly after I sang, he was very much interested in enrolling me in a program here at UCT. And from then onwards, 2019, I then decided to shift from HR to music, to opera, basically. And the rest is history.
Did you know at the time that this would become sort of your full-time gig, that this would be your career path in essence?
Honestly, no. I've always had a soft spot for it. But I never thought of it as anything possible. But I 100% no, I don't think it was ever an option for me. But look at me now.
Jeremy, when again we think about opera, the way in which it's just so elegant and so glorious, always feels like something out of the medieval times. Do you find that it's music, especially for those that are not necessarily genuinely interested in classical music? Is it something that's hard to explain?
I don't think it is at all hard to explain. My perception here and in other countries has been that when you get somebody through the door in an audience for the first time, and they're not sure what to expect, they always love it. They always say, I had no idea this was such a powerful experience, such a meaningful experience. And I guess what I'd like to do is slightly dispel the myth that it's old-fashioned or historical. Yes, sometimes the music was written a long time ago, sometimes it wasn't. But when we put it on stage, we make sure that these stories and these characters feel contemporary, that these are stories about people with the same thoughts and feelings and concerns that we have. And the thing that separates it from spoken theatre, where obviously that's also the case, is that music is such a powerful means of expression. So these opera singers are not only speaking words and interacting on stage, but they're singing them, and therefore everything's heightened and extraordinary.
Luvo, the power of storytelling through opera?
I think I agree 100% with Prof. The one thing that I can say is, throughout my time having learned under his tutelage, is that the one thing that is the same throughout history is the problems that everyone goes through. We seldomly think that they are opera is very different to a lot of things, but it's actually storytelling of everyday problems, political problems, and everything. It's just that it's just a matter of time when they happened, but they're the same. Love stories and everything. Romeo and Juliet. We have our own Romeo and Juliet stories here in South Africa. It's a matter of how you present it. That's what Prof is talking about in terms of when we stage it and put it into context to make sure that it's relevant to the time. But I believe 100% that the power that opera has in conveying a message is truly extraordinary. And I think that's one thing that attracted me to it, besides the noise that we make. But other than that, it's truly, it reaches out. And a simple example like Amagoga, we did Amagoga here at UCT, that focused on gender-based violence and other things pertaining to that. It reached out and it touched hearts. That's the most beautiful thing, especially if a person comes to you and say, wow, that was so beautiful, you made me cry. That's enough for us.
Classical music can be quite technical and complex in nature. It does require a lot of discipline in order to get it right. You have to put in the hours, and I think that those whose ears are also attuned to this genre of music they know sort of the level that you have to be hitting in order to be recognized or even taken seriously. Luvo, what is that journey of learning? What has that been like for you? What has it been? What has it entailed?
Well, because I didn't have a history of learning Western notation and and the type of singing that has to go with it, the nuances and the detail. It was a bit of a challenge when I started, but over time one learns. I mean, you have classes, you have lecturers who teach you Italian, who teach you, lyric diction. Prof taught us lyric diction for Italian and French, things like that, where you have to be able to pronounce better and you see how that relates to how you sing then. Those are the things that are very important that you have to take throughout. and you have to learn and sit down and be patient with yourself, respect the process, and make sure that you get better every day. That's one thing that Prof always says: get better every day, be better than the person you were the previous day. So it was a challenge, but other than that, I think it's everyone goes through the same type of wave, but you end up passing and getting achievements.
Do you have to end up taking it as a language, Luvo? Both French and Italian, are those sort of prescribed as part of what you have to do, simply because so much of the music also happens to be in those languages?
Yes, you have to. So first year you take Italian, and then second year is German, and then the third year is French. So that's the trajectory that one goes through. It's very important because these are compulsory languages where most operas are written in, and you have to learn how to pronounce everything properly. And Prof here is very, he helps us every step. The one thing that I think one can take when they leave the Opera UCT is you take the process of how to actually apply everything on everything that you do. So that's the fundamental truth, is that these languages are so important that they transcend to the singing part. So when we're talking about technique and technicalities and everything, they are all vested in the language in most cases. So, yeah.
I'd like to just add that it's a whole business of pronouncing languages, but it's also a business of really being able to express yourself in those languages. So all these singers really learn the languages quite deeply, so that when they're singing, they're really expressing themselves incredibly deeply. And I think that's the wonderful part, that's the inspiring part of what we do. That doesn't feel like boring detail in any way. I hope.
Luva, the reason why I'm laughing is because as I was looking through the song choices last night and what they called, I thought, my word, now how am I going to begin pronouncing this? And Prof, it perhaps also comes back to when we talk about what opera looks like today. Are we going to have a Zulu opera one day? A Sepedi opera, or is that not what part of the plan is? Is that if you want to be international, if you want to play, at the level that is recognized, you have to conform to what already exists?
I think the thing about the classical music world is that there's music being written right now, but we also perform the music of the past because we value it so much. So there have already been Zulu operas. I conducted Princess Magogo back in 2005-06, I think. It was not only done around South Africa, but I conducted it in Amsterdam. It went to America. The Amagocha that we just spoke about was a dual language thing, wasn't it? So yeah, so these things already exist, and there's a lot of opera obviously being written around the world in English now, as it's sort of so many people's second language at least. So no, it's very much the case, and I mean, partly here, but certainly internationally, there's a lot of opera being written, and a lot of classical music being written in general. So we feel it's a very contemporary art form in many ways. It's just that we also value the pieces from the past, and if we're going to do those, and if we're going to do them in the original language, then that's why we insist on so much Italian and German, French study, sometimes Czech, sometimes Russian. Of course, there's also the option of getting a very, very skilled translator to put those other operas into a reasonable English or a reasonable isiZulu or whatever. It has been done every so often. I know that in Gauteng, quite often there are performances of Messiah, Handel's Messiah, in, I think, isiZulu. And this is something, a translation is about 50 years old now. So it might not be as widespread as we'd like, but it definitely happens.
Morning, Cathy. Thank you so much for this segment that you're doing now. Every weekend between 4 and 7 Saturdays and Sundays, we listen to Mr. Masote's show. That man has the most informative show and beautiful, beautiful music. Thank you so much. Have a brilliant weekend. Janet, Eastern Cape.
Janet, I couldn't agree with you more. Of course, he is the resident expert when it comes to classical music. Joining us on the show for this hour is Professor Jeremy Silver, Director at Opera UCT, and Luvo Maranti, who is a student, a tenor in particular, at Opera UCT. We're going to continue the conversation with them and of course, bring you more music on the Friday Wind Down. For now, it's 11:30.
Thank you very much. It's the news headlines at 11:30. Ke Modupi Makhalemele. Good morning. The ANC says former Cabinet Minister Pravin Gordhan leaves behind a legacy of service and sacrifice. The 75-year-old died early this morning after a battle with cancer. Lobby group AfriForum has vowed to take legal action against the government as soon as President Cyril Ramaphosa signs the Basic Education Laws Amendment, or the Bella Bill, into law. And workers at the troubled U.S. plane maker Boeing have voted overwhelmingly to go on strike for the first time in 16 years. Details of these and other stories at midday.
Powerball is estimated at a staggering 106 million rand jackpot this Friday. Could luck be knocking on your door? Play Powerball for an estimated 106 million rand today and stand a chance to bag the life-changing jackpot. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old and play responsibly. eTuba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Catch the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2. It's another elimination week, and the bottom 6 are taken on a culinary trip back to school. For this challenge, they must create their dream lunchbox filled with nutritious yet delicious treats, and their creations are impressive. That's the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7. Repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. Only on SABC2.
Celebrating our music heritage right here on the Friday Wind Down.
See
Cathy, I must say I really do enjoy opera, even though I do not understand a single word that they'll be saying. Can they be able to narrate some of the words that they are saying there? Because I do not understand the word, but somehow I enjoy opera music. This is the Highwayman.
The Highwayman is looking for translations, and what you're listening to there is a duet from Delinda by Donizetti, and it is Molly Zangari, who's the soprano, and Luvo Maranti, who's the tenor there, and Jeremy Silva on the piano. And this, of course, was recorded ahead of Opera UCT's world premiere full production of Delinda at the Baxter Theatre last week. Luvo Marandi is one of our guests this hour alongside Professor Jeremy Silva. So, Luvo, man of the world, or man in the street, I forgot what he said his name is. He's looking for translation. Man in the highway says he wants subtitles to the opera. But I must say, I think just listening to that, a part of me feels like that's what I think I would sound like if I applied my mind to it, really, really focused on it, because it's just so magical. But I know that it's not possible, and it's not that easy.
Well, I think it is. It is easy if you really do put your mind in it.
Luvo, don't lie. Luvo, don't lie.
Yeah, no, but I believe this is the thing that one of my influences in opera, who I've listened to since childhood, who's always said, if you start children at a young age and teach them music, there's nothing that's going to be impossible for them. And that was Luciano Pavarotti. So I think it is possible. It's just that, you have to, give yourself some time with it.
Jeremy, how would you describe Delinda as a production and the work that you as Opera UCT have put into it?
I guess the first thing to say about Delinda is that it was written in the 19th century. For some reason, it was never performed. That's in those days, the censors, the political censors, always looked at stories and they said yes or no to things. And the composer didn't get this one over the line because it was considered a little bit contentious. And the extraordinary thing is that we have literally done the world premiere performance. The composer could never have imagined that would have happened in South Africa. It's a fantastic piece of music. We've discovered that it's as good as everything else he wrote, if not better than many other things. It will definitely now continue on the world stage. But I guess South Africa and Opera UCT in particular will sort of go down in history as the people who brought it to the stage first. On the subject of captions and surtitles and things, I have to say every performance we give of an opera, whatever it is, we have the text written in English and in isiXhosa on a screen just above the stage. So audiences always know what's going on. It's just like watching a Netflix series.
And and I know that, of course, the production premiered recently, but how would you say the reception has been so far?
Oh, we've had a fantastic reception. A lot of people came to see it. I've only heard really positive comments. People have just said it was incredibly absorbing, incredibly captivating all the way through. They loved it musically. They loved storylines. Yeah, I think it's been really wonderful to be able to bring this to Cape Town and for people to love it so much.
Do you find that you get a different reception depending on where you are in the country?
I mean, the only place at the moment, unfortunately, that fully staged opera happens regularly is Cape Town. In the past, obviously, a lot more happened around the country. But I mean, when we do manage to perform, usually freelance, in Pretoria or in Johannesburg or in Durban or in East London, yeah, there's always huge interest and huge support. It would be wonderful if we could manage to take it further afield, and we're always looking at ways to do that.
Yeah, I think so too. Let me bring into this conversation Lungile Jacobs, who is the president of the Choral Opera and Orchestral Federation of South Africa. Lungile, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. How are you?
I'm doing well. You wanted to weigh in on this conversation.
Yes, Cathy. I hosted Prof. Jeremy in March up in Johannesburg, where I was doing a symposium on the opera music that we were hosting, where we had hired some 30 young people and formed them into a choir, paid them for 2 months, because we are creating a sustainable kind of, because what happens is that they produce these singers, and in the country right now, there's not much in terms of where they can perform. So I've just started an organization called the African Opus, which in Port Elizabeth month end we'll be doing a black tie opera night, a gala opera night, and then we're taking it to East London, we're taking it to Mthatha, because we've realized that a lot of young people who come out of these opera schools, there's one in Joburg, there's one I think in Durban, they don't have a place unless they go overseas or they go to Cape Town Opera, which is the only one currently that is surviving. There's nothing else where they can actually make a living. So we have formed what we call the African Opus, which is now a home where these young people can actually be registered into, and every month they will have an opportunity to perform. This coming month, and it's Port Elizabeth, for instance, and then it's East London, and then it's Mthatha, and then we aim next year to take it around the country. So the idea that UCT Opera and Prof and what they are doing there, and Patrick Tikolo and all of them, is that they need to be able to say, how do we work with communities so that when we take these young people and we train them, what next then happens? And so we are creating those opportunities internally in the country, unless they are able to be fortunate enough to go overseas and express their talent. So that's what we are doing currently.
Yeah, and I guess in many ways it's unfortunate, Lungile, because these young people, obviously, they take the time out to actually put themselves through school, make sure they need to do what is required. How do we cultivate a local market for opera that even for those who might not necessarily be able to compete at an international level or create careers internationally, can still have careers locally and have those be meaningful and sustainable?
Cassie, that's a very good point. And what I am appealing for right now is that, for instance, 2 weeks ago, I attended the Minister's Bosparade, Minister Mackenzie's Bosparade for artists in the country. We were all up in Johannesburg and we got together. And the minister seems to be promising that things are going to change. I have invited the minister to this event that is in PE to say, here are young people in the Eastern Cape with extreme talent, international talent, but they don't have the exposure. So what am I going to appeal for instance, what you are doing now, Cathy, is one way to expose these young people to the corporate world in South Africa, because through corporate funding, this could be possible, that young people internally can have, number one, performance opportunity, number two, sustainable jobs that they can maintain, number three, they can also spread the word of this beautiful talent. As Prof was saying, we've got Princess Magogo, we've got an opera written after Mandela that need to be performed by such companies. But because of support from the media and from corporate South Africa, because of lack of support, we are unable to sustain these things. And so what we've done with this African Opus entity is to say, let's work with, for instance, we've just come from two corporate entities in Port Elizabeth right now to say, can you work with us? And they are promising, but they're asking us the question, who's your media partner? And so that's where I'm putting the challenge onto you, Cathy, to say you need to come on board as the media, because that's the only way some of these corporates want to play a role is when we have media partner. But it's possible, Cathy.
Okay. Lungile Jacobs, thank you for calling in. He's the president of the Choral Opera and Orchestral Federation of South Africa. Jeremy, perhaps to come back to you. I imagine that even at Opera UCT, the bar is very high, and there are those that fall by the wayside. What are the alternative pathways that are available to them, given the lack of market and opportunities, as Lungile has described?
I think first I want to say Lungile is doing a fantastic job with his now two organizations that he's running. It's really very inspiring. And really the only way that countries manage to have a thriving art scene is if you can persuade a mixture of government and corporate funding into the sphere. It's always worth doing. It always feels like a public good. It creates social cohesion. It promotes people's talents. It's really worth doing. And I tell many of our young singers that yes, okay, some of you will want to go abroad and compete, as it were. I don't like thinking of it as competition, but in a sense it is on an international scale. But many of them really have to be entrepreneurs as well. They have to be prepared to put stuff on here, to start organizations. When you see opera on, you see the singers on stage, but actually it's an enormous village of different competencies that are working behind the scenes. So we also have people who want to be stage directors, who want to be stage managers, who want to maybe get involved in social media marketing. All these different things we can also put our young singers' way so that they can either do some of those things alongside their performance studies, or they can decide maybe that they're going to go into that element of the art scene. But we are doing as much as we can to spread the word. We also had both the national and the provincial arts ministers at Dalinda, and they were very, very positive about our performance and our general message. I mean, one of the things I say, I talk about the art very, very often. I say how fantastic the talent is, and I talk about how wonderful opera is and classical music is. But I would also say that it's an incredibly sharp vector of transformation in this country, because if somebody comes from an area where there's a fantastic community choir or church choir and they've got the feel and the talent for singing, but maybe they haven't had all the educational advantages as a child, providing they can get to us, we can possibly put them on a journey to a big career, which will happen partly here, partly in Europe and America. And so frequently I see the first thing that happens with their success is that they're plowing money back into their communities, they're building their parents' homes, they're educating their siblings and their cousins. It has such an extraordinary wide-ranging effect. So it's not actually just about the art. It's principally about that, but it's about a much wider phenomenon as well.
Luvo, don't lie, Luvo. I'm driving alone here. I tried to put my mind together and understand. I like your music, but hey, the thing which confused me. What does that mean, Luvo? Morning, Cathy, and your team in studio and your guests. Great show always. It's Uncle JJ, the track driver. Luvo must tell us what is the meaning of the song, because I can only...
Good morning. I'm really interested in this program. I just wanted to tell a small anecdote. My children, aged 4 and 6, were exposed to a lot of classical music. They absolutely loved it. The Cape Town Symphony Orchestra used to come to our town and the first time I took them, aged 4 and 6, I exposed them to the program that the orchestra would be playing, so they knew it was going to be Beethoven's Triple Concerto and various other pieces. And there was a lot of muttering and grumbling from the audience who saw these two little children and thought they would disturb them. At the end, my children did not move a muscle. They were absolutely entranced, and both have gone on and have got their degrees and performance certificates in music. Quite interesting that from the start they loved it. Thank you. Bye.
What a lovely anecdote. Thanks for sharing that with us. Luvo, you've got our Uncle JJ trying to not only sing along but understand what are the words. So what does it mean, Luvo? He wants to know, what is he singing?
In that particular scene that we just performed, that is between Dalinda and Ildemaro. Dalinda is played by Moli Zangare and Ildemaro is me. So in this particular scene, Dalinda is pleading for me to pray for my mother, who happens to be her, Dalinda herself. Because we had separated because of violence and political things, and now I've come to search for my mother with a group of mercenaries. This is placed basically in the Third Crusade, and by me coming to this place where she is, we meet up, and I am entranced. Something draws me to her in a way, and one can say it's a connection of a mother and son. And she's now pleading me to pray for her, for my mom, and to hope that I still love her throughout everything that's been happening.
Thank you for that, Luvo. Jeremy, is there anything you want to promote quickly before we wrap the conversation up?
Well, we're already, having just finished Dalinda, we're already in preparation for our next opera. We're doing an opera called The Turn of the Screw by Benjamin Britten. It's like a ghost story. It's like a bit of a psychological thriller on stage. It'll be at the Baxter from the 20th to the 23rd of November. And I really encourage people to come. It'll be a thrilling evening.
Thank you both so much for coming onto the show. Professor Jeremy Silver, Director at Opera UCT, Luvo Maranti, Student Tenor at Opera UCT. Let's leave it on that lovely high note.
SAFM leading the conversation.
O'clock on Friday, the 13th of September 2024. A very warm welcome to Updated Noon here on SAFM, leading the conversation. I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour,
we are correcting or doing what we should have done years ago. Years ago, we should have focused more of our attention on the foundational level of education.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has signed the Bella Bill into law.
South Africa has lost an outstanding leader whose unassuming persona belied the depth of intellect, integrity and energy with which he undertook his activism, his duty as a parliamentarian.
And tributes continued to pour in for former Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan. Coming up in sport,
plenty qualifying across the continent for the Champions League and the Confed Cup. And should the Proteas be playing against Afghanistan?
Well, we can't wait to hear those answers. And that's John Jericho in the second half of the show. Please share your views with us. 41391 is the SMS line number. You will be charged R1.50 per SMS. You can also get in touch with us through writing via X or Facebook, our handle at SABC News_radio, or you can send us a WhatsApp voice note on 0826923909. Well, these and more stories coming up on this Friday edition of Updated Noon. First, though, is the latest news with Modupi Mohlahlana.
Sakina. The top stories at midday. Ramaphosa signs the Bella Bill into law and continuing tributes for Pravin Gordhan. A very good afternoon. President Cyril Ramaphosa has signed the Basic Education Laws Amendment, or the Bella Bill, into law. Speaking at the Union Buildings in Pretoria, he said that the Basic Education Minister Sivuya Gwagube has committed to implementing the bill despite her protestation to the signing of the bill in its current state. Ramaphosa says he will allow a process of consultation for concerned parties regarding clauses 4 and 5 of the bill.
I have committed to the people of South Africa that I am signing the bill today. But I have also said, I am hearing you. I am listening to what you are saying. And in the spirit of cooperation and meaningful engagement, I cannot say no to engagement even at this late hour. I have to say, if you do believe that these challenges can be resolved, I am going to sign the bill to give a clear message to the people of South Africa